And hello, welcome once again, boys and girls and gentlemen, and these two guys. And this guy, too. Yeah, it's another edition of The Closed Fist. I'm Russ, Will, Joey, and our special guest, Dan Murphy from Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
Yes, happy to be here.
Yeah, we bribed him.
Well, you're taping this in a bar, so it's kind of my natural environment, so it was pretty easy to get me here.
Plan worked. And you're also an author of Sisterhood of the Squared Circle.
Yeah, it's a book that came out in 2017, so it's been out for about 7-8 months now. Complete history of women's pro wrestling.
Complete history,
yeah, from the 1880s all the way up until now, up until the Women's Revolution, Ronda Rousey and WWE.
Don't worry about the phone. They're just looking for the credit card.
Oh, okay.
This happens every Saturday.
Every show.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Every show.
1880s.
If it didn't happen, I'd worry about it.
Then you get to keep the credit card, right?
Exactly. We're going shopping.
It's always special.
1880s? Seriously? I mean, you're talking any moonsaults to speak of during this?
not on purpose. I mean, somebody might have fallen the wrong way and land, but
Were they branded as like witches and dunks?
Well, I mean, it even dates back before that, depending on where you really want to begin it. But really, women's wrestling was an attraction on the carnival circuit, just like men's pro wrestling was. You had kind of the beat the champ kind of thing. You'd have a shooter go into a town and say who's the toughest guy, who can last 5 minutes, who can pin the champion kind of thing. With women, it was a little bit more risque, but you'd have a woman out there. It's like, who can wrestle with me? And, they would say, like, any guy who weighs less than 125 pounds who can last 5 minutes with this girl, whatever. And then everybody would kind of bet. It's a carnival. So you have people taking side bets, people doing action. They choose a mark. Either the girl knows how to work and knows enough to just hook him somehow and make the guy kind of a fool, or you have a plant in the audience, which is a lot of times the woman's husband, who would come in, work a match with them, and then go home and they pocket all their winnings. And before anyone knew any better, they're on to the next town. And women's wrestling kind of developed a lot. I mean, that's where pro wrestling came from, but women's wrestling really started up that way.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I feel like I learned something new right there, man. Like, and I know that women's professional wrestling, probably came after the fact, but I've been watching wrestling for 35 plus years, and I didn't even think of that, like how they would work it as a carnival gimmick, and that's really, really cool. I didn't realize.
I mean, it's still the same thing, and that's where the
more
terminology came from. Yeah, like marks.
Yeah.
The old thing of a mark is on the carnival circuit. Somebody walked by, and you'd have kind of the ropes, the marks, the locals, unsophisticated folk.
Yes.
Right. And if somebody looked at somebody who's like, I can get money off this guy. He's either kind of a dimwit, or he's got a cute girl with him he's trying to impress or whatever. He's an easy money mark. What they would do, according to the legends, is they'd have a little piece of chalk, and somebody would come over, put their arm around the guy, and they kind of mark his shoulder, put a little X or a little mark. That way, everybody in the carnival could see, that's a mark. That's a guy who's got money that we can get from. And that's where the term came from. You literally would mark the guy, and that's it. And that still obviously exists in wrestling today.
My mind is blown right now. I'm just saying.
I thought you would know that. You're a carny, aren't you?
No, yeah, right. But I have no segue ability when it comes to things talking on this show, but I just thought that was really interesting. Sorry.
Now, how long did it take you to write this?
Really, overall, it took about 2.5 years. Yeah, and I wrote it with Pat LaPrade from Montreal. Pat's a good friend of mine. I write for Pro Wrestling Illustrated as well, and I have been handling for the past 10 years or so the annual PWI 500. And
we may have many gripes and questions for you later.
People do. Yeah, I get a lot of heat on that. But they also had me start doing the PWI Female 50. That was kind of my baby. I had the idea. I pitched it for a few years, and we finally started doing it. So for years, I've been working on the PWI Female 50, and I go to a lot of like Shimmer shows, women's independent shows, and scout. So I know that scene. And at one of the Shimmer shows, Pat LaPrade came over, and he did a great book on the history of pro wrestling in Montreal called Mad Dogs, Midgets, and Screwjobs. And about Mad Dog Vachon. Midget wrestling was very big there, and obviously the Montreal Screwjob. And he said, no one's ever done a real book on the history of women's pro wrestling, and I think you and I are the right two guys to do it. And I immediately brought out my notebook that I carry with me all the time and started writing some things down, like, yeah, we could do this. Like, there's enough there. I already had the chapter breakdown, kind of off the top of my head. And from that moment on to getting the deal with ECW Press, to writing, editing, conducting all of the interviews, finding all of the artwork, fact checking, doing the editing and proofreading. Yeah, about 2.5 years before it finally became a reality.
Wow.
As we were talking about just before we started taping too, I mean, like the timing of this is absolutely perfect with the women's explosion right now that's just going on.
Yeah, we saw that coming, and that's why we thought this is the time to do it. But certainly, it's worked out even more than we expected. We in the book, and last year at Cauliflower Alley at the Cauliflower Alley Club reunion, I go every year to that. It's a big, it's a social club and fundraising organization for retired pro wrestlers out in Las Vegas. And anyway, I did a seminar last year, maybe 2 years ago now. Myself and Pat LaPrade we had Malaya Hosaka, Chelsea Diamond. I always confuse her with Chelsea Green, but Chelsea Diamond, Santana Garrett, and we had one other girl who was up on stage with cheerleader Melissa. Were on stage with us, and we talked about the future of women's pro wrestling. And what we talked about, and we talk about in the book, is will we ever see a day where women headline a WWE pay-per-view? And we've seen it now. We've seen it twice.
Yeah.
The Royal Rumble,
definitely.
and Hell in a Cell.
Tons of Raw and SmackDowns as well.
Right, and there's also the possibility now where with Ronda Rousey coming in, maybe not this year, but at some point, she might headline a WrestleMania. We could have, we might be at that era where a women's match could headline the biggest show of the year. So it's really pretty incredible.
Well, I think the ultimate question is also how much beer was involved in the writing of this book.
Oh my God, a lot. See, that's the good thing about Pat. Pat LaPrade.
You can write here anytime you want.
Oh, I will take you up on it. There's I don't know, the camera probably can't see, but there's a tragically hip table. Like, I want that to be my table. Like, I will sit here and write at that table.
We can work something out.
But yeah, Pat likes his beer as much as I do. So yeah, we did a lot of late nights and a lot of research and. Yeah, so it was worth it. I'm real happy with the end result.
Now, I guess when you're going through this process, you have to get your material, you have to go directly out to the field. How difficult was it to gain the trust of the female wrestlers?
It was pretty easy for me, and I think maybe that's one of the reasons Pat LaPrade wanted me involved with this, because he could have done this book himself. He kind of pitched the idea to me, and we worked it all out. Because I'd written for Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and because I've been a fixture in Shimmer and whatever, and because I'm gracious when I go to shows. Shimmer, cheerleader Melissa, for example, she took an elbow in a match against Lufisto, blood everywhere, just blood pouring off of her face, and they didn't know if she had a concussion because she just hit the mat hard and blood everywhere. Allison Danger came up to me backstage and says, "Would you mind taking Melissa to the hospital? Because I don't know if she's concussed. We want somebody that she feels comfortable with." Right. And because I was there, that was me. So I, loaded bloody Melissa into the truck. We drive to the hospital. She gets the 13 stitches, and I'm in the room. In fact, we get to the hospital, and there's a huge waiting room out in Berwyn, Illinois. A lot of people waiting. And she's kind of sad because she had never missed a Shimmer taping. And this is the first taping. She's like, I'm going to miss the second taping. It's going to be my first, this is like volume 60 or something, she'd been there since the beginning. And so I go up to the desk at the hospital and say, listen, because when you go into a hospital with a wrestler who's been injured, you never say, well, they got injured pro wrestling. Right? So
they fell.
Oh, right, yeah, exactly. But that's when they always look at me. Like, I come in with a girl who's like bloody and say, what happened? She fell, she hit her head.
She walked into a door.
Yeah. But I said, my friend over here, she's a model. She does a little bit of modeling, and she's worried that the longer they go without stitches, the more likelihood to scar, and she's really upset. And I go, you don't happen to have a plastic surgeon on duty on hand? Actually, we do. So we bypassed everybody. We go in, she gets her stitches right away. I'm texting Allison Danger and saying, hey, we might get out of here on time. She probably can't work, but she could maybe get a spot on the show. So everybody in the locker room is tweeting out, oh, Danger, she's going to get, or Melissa's going to get stitches. She's not going to be able to make the show, whatever. In the meantime, we get out of the hospital, fly up, I'm speeding, let her out the side door. She comes in the back, and she gets in just in time to do a run-in in the main event. And Shimmer fans are smart. They're all reading Twitter throughout the night. They're all following the show. Okay, Melissa's not here. So when she shows up for the run-in, the house popped because nobody expected it. And anyway, long segue with all of that. The fact is, I have a certain level of trust with a lot of the girls, and that works huge. You know, I've never done anything to betray that trust. I've never been sketchy. I try to, do things the right way. So the girls I didn't know, the girls I did know put me in touch with, and being involved with Cauliflower Alley helped me get in touch with a lot of the veterans too. So
Wow.
I had that credibility, and a lot of the girls were willing to open up.
Wow. Wow. I mean, the revolution started roughly we'll call it hashtag or hands in quotes, the revolution started maybe supposedly started a couple years ago with the call up.
Yeah.
But what is your take on that? Because would you say it's before that and it built up to that, or?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that it's great that Stephanie McMahon recognized the women that they had on the roster and brought them up and said these women need a bigger stage. That's terrific, and she deserves a certain amount of credit for that. But she's certainly not the one who invented women's wrestling. She's not the one who. It's not her baby. Whatever. Shimmer, really, in my opinion, was the thing that started the ball rolling. And Dave Prazak and Allison Danger, we talk about it in the book, but it was this idea of, can a women's promotion that's not Glow, it's not for kind of skimpy outfits and sex appeal and comedy, can you really have a promotion that's going to draw and sell DVDs that is based on women's athletic pro wrestling matches? And Shimmer went out there and did, and proved that it can be done, and became this international location where you're bringing in women from Japan, and you're bringing Saraya Knight, and later Paige, her daughter, from the UK and from Australia, and Madison Eagles and others. It became a literally international hotspot for women's wrestling, and it was taking off. And it was very easy for WWE to look and say, okay, they've got something, we can tap into this. And I don't think if Shimmer hadn't taken off, I don't know if the women's revolution would have. Maybe it would, because Ronda Rousey proved that women can be a draw in fighting sports. But certainly Shimmer opened the doors for women's wrestling that got a lot of these younger women into wrestling who probably never would have 10 years ago.
Wow.
Well, it seems like the WWE is more reacting to what was already started, even like with the guys with New Japan kind of coming up the ranks, and they're reacting to what else is going on out there where they used to be the pinnacle and the leader. They're following suit now.
Yeah. Well, even if you think about it, and I don't know why I was thinking about this earlier today, but I was, Rusev, with Rusev Day and that whole thing. I think he tweeted about it, and that's why it was in my mind, but that was just a one-off little spot. Somebody said Rusev Day, and it got over. And next thing you know, WWE's doing a calendar of Rusev Day where every day is Rusev Day, right? Yeah. And it's just like the WWE sees that the audience is into it, and it's like, oh, they're into it. Let's throw some money, let's do something and take advantage of it while they're into it. And women's wrestling, hopefully it's got more legs than something like Rusev Day, but they saw that there was an audience for it, and they jumped on it, just like New Japan and everything else. So kudos to them for recognizing the opportunity.
I was going to say the performers they have now, with the talent they have now, after watching the matches for the past couple years, I think that they definitely, the women's wrestling definitely has legs in the, moving forward. Watching Sasha Banks and Charlotte and everybody, that's just what I've seen. I'm not too well versed in women's wrestling per se, but just from the stuff I've seen, I mean, some of those matches are really, really good. It
piqued interest.
Yeah,
in female
for
wrestling,
sure,
that's
for sure.
I mean, especially the two you mentioned.